volumes and at least 6 subscriptions to newspapers and periodicals, the library is the dynamo or power source which energizes these students. We now take you to our award-winning library science correspondent, Barbara Wawa. Barbara?
Yeah, it's not on now, right?
Yeah. It's the red light's on.
But the numbers aren't going, it's pausing.
Numbers are going.
We're filming.
Okay.
Thank you, Diane. Well, as you can see, we are in the beautiful library at Thomas Nelson Community College. It is full of conscientious students. There's a young lady here who's working on a term paper. Let's ask her what she thinks about the quality of education here at TNCC. Miss? Miss? Miss, may I ask you about what you think of the quality of education here at Thomas Nelson Community College? Well, there you have it. A student who has worked so hard that she is utterly exhausted. I see she's been working on a term paper, grocery list. We're in another part of the library here. Here's a young man who's studying avidly. Let's ask this young man what he is studying. May I ask you what subject you're studying so avidly? Well, that's a pre-med student studying anatomy. We're in another part of the library here. Here's a young man who's studying avidly. Let's ask this young man what he is studying. May I ask you what subject you're studying so avidly? Well, that's a pre-med student studying anatomy. And now we switch you to the math lab, our Curie prize-winning course.
We are fortunate to have a moment in the math lab with Dr. Auckland, who is a mathematician here at Thomas Nelson Community College and whose ties can be traced back to Pythagoras. Dr. Auckland, how would you characterize the students you see?
Well, they're incredibly interested and eager to explore the recesses and depths of mathematics. They constantly amaze me with their insight and acuity. I'm hard-pressed to stay ahead of these scholars. Really, the future of this nation is not in doubt with the incisive and inquiring minds that I deal with in my classes. Their inspiration drives this faculty to heights of effort not seen since the Dark Ages.
TNCC more than just a place to earn a living?
I'm not here to earn a living. I'm sustained and inspired by these students. The challenge they represent nourishes me. It's my bread and wine.
But man does not live by bread alone.
Mon Dieu, what you say is true, but don't forget that a future nurse, mechanic, or stockbroker will lead a richer life because of TNCC. I know this much. If these students work as hard as they now study, they will all be as rich as Croesus one day.
Well, thank you, Dr. Auckland.
Professor Butler, will you please tell us about the quality of education here? What do you think of the students at Thomas Nelson?
I'm sorry, I don't have time for this.
We are fortunate today to have a moment with Professor Bruno, one of Tidewater's leading poets and literary lions. Professor Bruno, how would you characterize the students that you see?
Well, in fact, Diane, I have a prepared statement on this. These students are incredibly interested and eager to explore the recesses and depths of learning. They constantly amaze me with their insight and their acuity. I'm hard-pressed to stay ahead of these scholars. Really, the future of this great nation is not in any doubt with the incisive and inquiring minds that I encounter in my classes. Their inspiration drives this faculty to heights of effort not seen since the Dark Ages.
So then you would consider TNCC more than just a place to earn a living?
Oh, I'm not here to earn a living. I'm sustained and inspired by these students. The challenge they represent to me, why, it's my bread and wine.
But man does not live by bread alone.
Well, mon Dieu, what you say is true. But these students, don't forget, the future nurse, the future mechanic, the future stockbroker are going to lead much fuller lives because of their experience here at TNCC. I know this much. If these students work as hard in their jobs as they have in their scholastic efforts, each of them is going to be as rich as Croesus someday.
Well, thank you, Professor Bruno. It has been a pleasure. And now, speaking of creches, we now join our Nobel Prize-winning correspondent, June Paris, in the economic...
Thank you, Diane. We're fortunate today to have a few words with Professor Musia, who has just returned from Washington, where he is personal advisor to Paul Volcker. Mr. Musia, how would you characterize the students you see here at TNCC?
Capital assets for this nation. They are incredibly interested and eager to explore the recesses and depths of learning. They consistently amaze me with their insight and acuity. I'm hard-pressed to stay ahead of these scholars. Really, the future of this great nation is not in doubt with the incisive and inquiring minds I deal with in my classes. Their inspiration drives this faculty to heights not seen since the Dark Ages.
So you consider TNCC more than just a place to earn a living?
Earn a living? I'm sustained and inspired by these students. The challenge they represent nourishes me. It's my bread and wine.
But man does not live by bread alone.
Mon Dieu! What you say is true, but don't forget that future nurse, mechanic, or stockbroker will lead a richer life because of TNCC. I know this much. If the students work as hard as they now study, they will all be as rich as Croesus.
Well, thank you, Professor Musia. It has been a pleasure. Well, as evidenced by our visit here at TNCC, it fits squarely into the mainstream of American education. Stay tuned now for our award-winning special, Dr. Ruth Interviews Reverend and Mrs. Baker.
To auto mechanics. This college has here at Thomas Nelson Community College. Since its beginning in 1968, the college has been devoted to providing first-rate
And now we switch you to the math lab correspondent, our prestigious Curie Prize-winning Now we switch you to the math lab, where our prize-winning... And now we switch you to our math lab for the... And now we switch you to the math lab, our Curie Prize-winning correspondent, June